The Korean Empire was proclaimed in October 1897, after the Joseon dynasty officially exited the Imperial Chinese tributary system. It lasted until the annexation of Korea by Japan in August 1910. Emperor Gojong oversaw the partial modernization of the military, economy, land system, education system, and various industries. Japan became wary of Korea's modernization attempt under Russian influence, and after the assassination of the resident general Ito Hirobumi, decided to directly annex Korea. History. Background. The First Sino-Japanese War marked the rapid decline of any power the Joseon dynasty of Korea had managed to hold against foreign interference, as the battles of the conflict itself had been fought on Korean soil and the surrounding seas. With its newfound preeminence over the waning and weak Qing dynasty, Japan had delegates negotiate the Treaty of Shimonoseki with the Qing emissaries, through which Japan wrested control over the Liaodong Peninsula from the Qing, and, more importantly, over Korea. However, Russia recognized this agreement as an act against its interests in northeastern China and eventually brought France and Germany to its side in saying that the Liaodong Peninsula should be repatriated to the Qing China. At the time, Japan was powerless to resist such foreign pressure, especially by nations that it considered far more advanced and which it sought to emulate, and as such relinquished its claim to the Liaodong Peninsula. With the success of the three-country intervention, Russia emerged as another major power in East Asia, replacing the Qing dynasty as the entity that the Joseon courts. Many government officials advocated close ties with to prevent more Japanese meddling in Korean politics. Queen Min, the consort of King Gojong, also recognized this change and formally established closer diplomatic relations with Russia to counter Japanese influence. Queen Min began to emerge as a key figure in higher-level Korean counteraction against Japanese influence. Japan, seeing its designs endangered by the Queen, quickly replaced its ambassador to Korea, Count Inoue, with Lieutenant General Viscount Miura, a diplomat with a background in the Imperial Japanese Army. It is widely known that he orchestrated the assassination of Queen Min on October 8, 1895, at her residence at the Gyeongcheong Palace, the official sleeping quarters of the king within Gyeongbok Palace. Proclamation of empire. With the assassination of his wife Queen Min, King Gojong and the Crown Prince fled to the Russian legation in 1896. During the time from Queen Min's death to the king's return from Russian protection, Korea underwent another major upheaval both at home and abroad. By 1894, new laws passed by pro-Japanese progressives in the royal cabinet forced through long-desired reforms aimed at revamping Korea's antiquated society. These laws were called the Gwangju Reform, referring to the year in which they began. Meanwhile, the new reforms aimed at modernizing Korean society soon attracted controversy from within. Anti-Japanese sentiment, which had already become entrenched in the minds of commoners and aristocrats alike during the Japanese invasions of Korea, became pervasive in the royal court and upper echelons of society following the Gangwon Treaty of 1876 and soon extended explosively to most Koreans. Following perceived Japanese meddling in court politics and the assassination of Queen Min, however, the new and modern reforms pushed forward by the pro-Japanese progressives, the most controversial of which was the mandatory cutting of male hair buns, ignited further resentment and discontent. This led to the uprising of the Yulmi temporary armies aimed at avenging the assassination of Queen Min. In 1897, King Gojong, yielding to rising pressure from both overseas and the demands of the Independence Association, led public opinion, returned to Gyeonggang. There, he proclaimed the founding of the Greater Korean Empire, officially redesignated the national title as such, and declared the new era named Gwangju, effectively severing Korea's superficial historic ties as a tributary of King China, which Korea had adhered to since the prior Manchurian invasion in 1636. Gojong became the Gwangju Emperor, the first imperial head of state and hereditary sovereign of Korea. This marked the complete end of the old world order and traditional amicable dependency system in the Far East. Korea's new status as an empire meant completely independence from Qing's sphere of influence, which means Korea was not influenced from Qing externally according to the Treaty of Shimonoseki of 1895, and also implemented the full and complete independence according to the treaty. The name, literally meaning Great Han Empire, was chosen to indicate the revival of the Samhan confederacies of the Proto-Three Kingdoms of Korea. In the tradition of naming new states after historic states, the significance of the declaration of an empire, in the Korean understanding of the situation, was to declare Korea's independence and equality with China. Historically, the usage of emperor was reserved only for the Chinese emperor, the Son of Heaven. Korean dynasties had acknowledged themselves as vassals of the Chinese, and had refrained from ever declaring their equality with China. When Japan experienced the Meiji Restoration, the Emperor of Japan was declared the source of sovereignty in the Japanese government. Upon receiving news of the Meiji Restoration from Japan, the Korean government refused to acknowledge the change. Not only did it challenge the primacy of the Chinese emperor as the suzerains of Korea, but Japan's address also addressed Korea as an equal, rather than as a Chinese subservient. The change in title for Korea to empire only became possible after the Sino-Japanese War. Westernization policy during the Korean Empire background. A group of Korean officials and intellectuals felt great necessity of the comprehensive reform of the country. After the observation tour of other modernized countries, more and more intellectuals were informed of the Western civilization and became conscious of the modernized powerful nations of Europe. Later, the progressives within the group initiated the Gwangju Reform in 1894, and the moderate reformists carried out the Gwangju Reform during the Great Korean Empire. American missionaries, who had close relationships with the Korean royal court, also helped the propagation of Western culture. Under royal finance and support, American missionary Dr. Horace N. Allen introduced Western medicine by establishing Gwanghaiwon, what would become Severance Hospital and the oldest Western-style hospital in Korea. Additionally, the missionaries provided Western education for Korean girls, who had previously been excluded from the educational system. Gwangju Reform. The Gwangju Reform was aimed at modernizing and westernizing Korea as a late starter in the Industrial Revolution. During the Gwangju period, Western-style official uniforms were introduced in Korea. Initially, Koreans were quite hostile to Western dress, and mocked Japanese who had adopted Western-style dress after the Meiji Restoration. At the start, the Korean emperor had begun to wear Prussian-style royal attire along with Korean diplomats, who wore Western suits. In 1900, Western attire became the official uniform for the Korean civil officials. Several years later, all Korean soldiers and policemen were assigned to wear Western uniforms. In the military sphere, the Korean army as it existed in the early 1890s consisted of about 5,000 soldiers, and it was increased to an immense amount of 28,000 right before the Russo-Japanese War. Training by Russian officers beginning in 1896 led to the organization of a 1,000-strong royal bodyguard armed with Burden rifles that served as the core of an improved army. From this core unit, soldiers were sometimes transferred to other units, which included 5 regiments of about 900 men each. In 1897, the Cadastral Survey project was launched by the Gwangju government, aiming at modernizing the land ownership system. In order to apply Western surveying methods, American surveyors were hired. After the survey, a property title, jigai, showing the exact dimension of the land, were supposed to be issued by the authorities concerned. That reform was closely involved to the reform of land tax system, which was conducted under the leadership of Yi Yong-ik. who also carried out the monetary reforms in Korea. The project was interrupted owing to the Russo-Japanese War in 1904–1905, after having finished about two-thirds of the whole land. In that time, modern urban infrastructures were built by the Gwangju government. In 1898, the emperor authorized the creation of a joint venture with American businessmen. In consequence, Hanseong Electric Company, operating a public electrical lighting network and an electric streetcar system, was founded. Seoul Fresh Spring Water Company had an American connection as well. In 1902, 6 years after the first introduction of telephone in Korea, the first long-distance public phone was installed. During the Gwangju period, the industrial promotion policy was also conducted by the Korean government. It gave support to found technical and industrial schools. In that time, along with modernized weaving factories which were established to meet demand for textiles on domestic market, technological innovations in the field of weaving industry were occurred in Korea. For instance, spinning and weaving machines were made for producing silk, so as to be substituted for high-cost machines from abroad. However, the Gwangju Reform was not a radical because of foreign liabilities, suppression of democracy, and slow pace of that. As a result, Korea was sandwiched between struggle of Japan and Russia. Subsequent developments: on August 22, 1904, the first treaty between Japan and Korea, known as First Japan-Korea Convention, was signed. The Taft-Katsura Agreement was issued on July 17, 1905, and was not actually a secret pact or agreement between the US and Japan, but rather a set of notes regarding discussions on US-Japanese relations between members of the governments of the United States and Japan. The Japanese Prime Minister Taro Katsura used the opportunity presented by Secretary of War William Howard Taft's stopover in Tokyo to extract a statement from Taft's feeling toward the Korea question. Taft expressed in the memorandum how a suzerain relationship with Japan guiding Korea would contribute to permanent peace in the Far East. In September 1905, Russia and Japan signed the Treaty of Portsmouth, ending the Russo-Japanese War and firmly establishing Japan's consolidation of influence on Korea. Secret diplomatic contacts were sent by the Gwangju Emperor in the fall of 1905 to entities outside of Korea, presenting Korea's desperate case to preserve their sovereignty because normal diplomatic channels were no longer an option due to the constant surveillance by the Japanese. On November 17, 1905, the Ulsa Treaty was signed in Korea even before Drive Homer Hulbit's mission entered Washington. Reportedly, the seal of the Korean Foreign Ministry was snatched and pressed on the document, which had been prepared by the Japanese. 1 week after the forced treaty, the State Department withdrew its U.S. legation from Korea even before Korea notified the U.S. of their new protectorate status. The empire began with the law and perception of the international system at the time stacked against what was a slowly modernizing country. In the end, a weak military and the remaining legacy of Korea's suzerain relationship with King held Korea back from fending off foreign encroachment. Eventually the Gwangju Emperor was forced to abdicate in 1907 in favor of his son, Emperor Sunjong, who became the second and last emperor of Korea. Due to his attempt to send delegates to the Hague Peace Conference in violation of the arbitrarily implemented Ulsa Treaty. The delegation at The Hague was led by Yi Sang-sol and his deputy Yi Jun. Yi Weijong presented a diplomatic attempt to reclaim the empire's sovereignty. Although Korea pleaded its case to the powerful members of colonial elite nations at The Hague, the view of protectorate status of Japan from the growing Japanese influences over Korea seemed natural and beneficial at the height of colonialism in the first decade of the 20th century to the Westerners. On August 22, 1910, the Korean Empire was annexed by Japan with the forced Japan-Korea Annexation Treaty, beginning a 35-year period of Japanese colonial rule which stripped Korea's sovereignty. Prior to the Korean Empire, several dynastic rulers of Gojoseon, Baekje, Goguryeo, Silifbaekje, Bala and Goryeo claimed the right to imperial status and used imperial titles at one time or another. Titles and styles during the Korean Empire. Hwangja, the emperor, with the style of imperial majesty. Hwanghu, the empress, with the style of imperial majesty. Hwangthrehu, the empress dowager, with the style of imperial majesty. Tare Hwangthehu, the empress dowager, current emperor's living grandmother, with the style of imperial majesty. Hwangtaija, the crown prince of the empire, the eldest son of the emperor, with the style of imperial highness. Hwangtaija Bai, the crown princess of empire, with the style of imperial highness. Qinwang, the prince, son of emperor, with the style of imperial highness. Qinwangbi, the princess, with the style of imperial highness. Gwangju, the princess of the empire, the daughter of the emperor and his empress consort, with the style of imperial highness. Ongju, the princess of the empire, the daughter of emperor and one of his concubines, with the style of imperial highness. Diplomatic relationships. Empire of Japan, 1876 to 1910. United States of America, 1882 to 1905. United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, 1882 to 1905. German Empire, 1883 to 1905. Kingdom of Italy, 1884 to 1905. Russian Empire, 1884 to 1905. French Third Republic, 1886 to 1905. Austria-Hungary, 1892 to 1905. King China, 1899 to 1905. Kingdom of Belgium, 1901 to 1905. Kingdom of Denmark, 1902 to 1905.